How far can you actually hear other PMCs in Grey Zone Warfare? Today I'm going to show you the 6 most important audio elements in 0.4 Spearhead, especially considering Madfinger changed the audio a lot in this patch. So you can win the information war against other players, and even more importantly, not leak information yourself without realizing. Okay, so let's get started. There are 6 headsets in Grey Zone Warfare. You have the earmuffs from Artisan 1 at $40, GSSHs from Turncoat 1 at $170, the razors from Banshee 1 at $235, the impacts from Banshee 2 at $340, the quads from Banshee 3 at $490, and the contact 2s at Banshee 4 for $825. I've listed these in rough order of progression because you get Artisan first, then Turncoat, and then Banshee, who has most of the headsets. And there is technically one more that I've found, which is Viper's Razor headset, and this seems to be boss only. I don't know at this point if this is exactly the same as the Razor or not, but given you can't buy it from the trader, that's going to have to be one for another time. Also, another important update for this wipe was the rangefinder that is inside the most expensive binoculars that you can buy on Banshee 4, so we're going to be using that to work out the exact ranges without having to fiddle around with the map. Let's get straight into the testing, and I'll show you a clip from each of these particular headsets so that you can hear yourself what the running sound is like when it's right at the edge of audibility. First up, we have no headset at all at 46 meters. Next, we've got the GSSH at 59. Then we have the razors at 52. Then we get the impacts at 54. Next we have the quads at 60. And finally we have the contact 2s at 65. Now the first thing I want to point out after this very first test is the extreme variability of the background. These were done at the edge of audibility. I put my game up to 100 in terms of the volume so that I could hear as best as I could, and I waited for the wind to die down to the lowest possible level to try to get the maximum audio range possible. If it's windy and the trees are rustling, you are not going to be able to hear these audio footsteps at that range. So this just shows you what is technically possible, but most of the time you're just simply not going to be able to hear it over the background noises of the game, and the audio ranges are going to be much shorter, so do bear that in mind for these tests. We do also have the construction headset as well. This used to be important in the past when you jumped on the helicopter so that you didn't end up hurting your hearing because the heli is really loud. But these days you can press letter O on your keyboard, it's the default keybind, and that will turn an active headset off so you can ride the heli in peace without getting your ears blown in. So we're going to ignore the construction headset from now on because you can't hear anything outside of 25 meters on that, and that's the minimum that it will read on the rangefinder. So we'll just park that one off to the side, as I don't think it really has much use anymore. As a very quick aside, I launched my merch the other day, and for Grey Zone Warfare, I have launched a new design, this one here. You may have seen me rocking this in Brno in the Czech Republic when I went to go and see Madfinger over there. So do go and check the link down in the description to go and see the new designs over there. I hope you'll like them. So next we have walking, which is the regular movement if you're just pressing W without any other controls. And we start here with no headset, where you can hear up to 36 meters. The GSSH is at 63. The razors at 49. The impact's also at 49. The quad's at 61. And the contact 2's also at 61. Now, one data point that does seem kind of weird here is the difference between the running and walking for the GSSH and the quads, because they're actually slightly inverted. And this just goes to show the difficulty of actually measuring how far these things can be. I would give this an error of maybe plus or minus 4 either side of the number that you see there. So these could well just be within the error bounds of that particular measurement. It's very difficult to get the range exactly because, as I said, all the background audio is so loud and very variable. One thing I would say though is that I did have to listen harder for the walking sounds versus the running sounds. They are softer and less precise, and so running is easy to hear at a closer distance, but it's very subtle. Walking is actually a very similar volume to running, but just slightly harder to actually notice. Next, let's look at slow walking. So this is when you are holding the modifier key to make yourself slow down while you're in regular W movement. Here, if you're not wearing a headset, you actually can't hear anybody until they are inside of 25 meters. So you can see here where that limit is just visually, although I can't measure it precisely. Next, we have the GSSH at 47. The Razor at 40. The Impact's at 37. The Quad's at 44. And the Contact 2's at 50. Again, bear in mind those error bars. You'll have to test it out and experiment with yourself, because there is an element of subjectivity to these as well. Different people like different audio profiles and different EQs, so just check it out and see what you think. This is to give you a rough idea of maybe where to start. Next, we'll look at crouch movement, and here with no headset, we can't hear them again under 25 meters. GSSH came out at 43. The Razor's at 37. Impact's at 39. The Quad's at 39 as well. And the Contact 2's at 45. But the general conclusions of this first set of headset testing is that any headset is better than no headset. I personally think the Contact 2s probably are the best, and they are the most expensive, so that makes sense. And one that is maybe a nice bang for buck version is the GSSHs. They come really early, so using those, you'll actually get some decent distance without sacrificing too much cash. Now, I will point out here, I did run into a strange bug quite a few times, where the headset seemed to just turn off, or the headset effect just wasn't running. I had to swap to a different headset and swap it back on again to activate the effect. Now, I don't know whether this was specifically because I was using custom servers to get this information, because I can't really remember it happening in the live servers. But do just make sure, if things sound a bit quiet, to check it out. As I said, I don't remember seeing it myself, but it could well be the case, because when you're focused in and not listening to it, sometimes it's quite hard to spot. This meant for some tests I had to rerun them multiple times, or swap the headset over to the earmuffs and then back again to make sure that they were actually fulfilling their purpose as they're supposed to, rather than being like no headset. So the third point here is that material actually matters. So far, all the tests that we've done are on the grass, but I did originally start testing using the Rode, and this was interesting because the Rode audio noise was quite a lot shorter than all the others. I'll play just one of them for you, which is the Contact 2s, which should give you an idea of how different that sounds. And because these are the original tests that I did, I'll show you the exact data. So I got an original set, and then I also did a second set as well just to check them. And you can see this is actually where I spotted the bug, the headset bug with the GSSHs, because I had them really, really short, and when I tested them a second time, they worked a lot better. So I had to make sure that that was going to be the case through all of the tests. A really good way to showcase this was standing on one of the buildings in Fort Nareth and running along the road and running along the grass, and you can hear the difference between the two. It's much harder to hear the guy who's running along the road. It's not silent, but it's much more difficult. So if you are in doubt, then running on the road is actually much quieter if you're making an approach up to an enemy. So audio tip number 4 about other sounds. Which other actions make sounds? Well, firstly, I was pleased to see that you do actually make stomach rumbling sounds if you're very close to an enemy PMC. You don't die if you're out of food or water. It doesn't really seem to have much effect on you other than giving you a dizzy look around the screen. But if someone's close enough to you, they will actually hear your stomach, which is quite funny. ADS also makes a sound, obviously. I tested this in a few different places, but it is quite close and difficult to get a perfect judge on exactly how far it is. And it does drop off quite quickly, so outside of that you won't hear them. So it's really only for CQB where you're going to actually hear somebody picking up their gun and aiming at you. Naturally, swapping weapons makes sound as well. Picking up items from the floor. And also zeroing. I was surprised how loud zeroing was close up to the player. Again, it has quite a steep drop-off, a bit like ADS, but just bear in mind that if you are zeroing your weapon, somebody near to you might be able to hear you doing it. Point number 5, the converse of this is things that are silent. So opening your inventory does not make any sound whatsoever. Moving items around within your bag and repacking magazines is also silent and makes no noise at all. One interesting one that I hadn't looked at before was about bag dropping, which is silent. Picking up your bag, again, as we saw before, does make a noise, but dropping a bag in the first place doesn't make any noise at all. So if you want to lighten the load before you get into a PvP fight, remember where your bag is, drop it on the ground, and then you can come pick it up later. Nobody will hear you put it down. So audio point number 6, watch out for occlusion. As we get more involved in Grey Zone Warfare and we get used to the new audio system, I'm sure there's going to be quirks and strange things, especially indoors. Indoors in video games is notorious in FPSs, and I did a few tests. So normal doors, if you close them, they do have some kind of occlusion layer there, so the sound is more muffled, either footsteps or jumping, anything like that does usually have a more muffled sound. Not super consistent, sometimes it sounds very similar, but often, especially at a little distance, it'll sound more muffled. I did also do some underground testing because I wanted to get rid of the background audio, but because of the ranges, it ended up not being that useful. But I did discover something down in the YBL bunker that I believe is again another occlusion related issue, where you've got these different sections of the bunker that should kind of be muffled against each other, but there are certain corridors where if you stand at one end or the other, you really can't hear each other at all, because I believe you're through 2 occlusion layers or something like that. Like your first PMC is in one box, and then there's a box in the middle of the two of you, and then your other PMC is in another box. If I stepped into this main corridor, I could hear them fine, and if they stepped into the main corridor, could also hear them fine. I suspect here there's 3 occlusion zones with 2 boundaries, and if you are 2 boundaries away, the sound is very, very muffled, including gunshots, even though they're stood right in front of you. And this is basically a symptom of using a simpler approach to audio, rather than something that's like an audio ray trace like the guys tried to add in EFT, which obviously increases the complexity of the game quite significantly, but technically, if it's done well, then it can give you a more realistic audio soundscape, especially indoors, around buildings, up stairwells, that kind of thing. So who knows, maybe these guys will look into putting this in at some point. But for the time being, beware and make sure that you don't fully trust the audio inside. So let me know if there's anything else that you would like me to test in particular. I'll try to collate some stuff together and put things that are relevant into another one. I do have another one planned, which is going to be about gunshots and gun ranges and suppressors, subsonics, that kind of thing, which was going to be a whole nother video on its own because it's too much to put in one. But if you have any other suggestions, then put it down in the comments. I will see it, and then I will consider it, mull it over, and add it to the list if it looks like a good idea. So do go and check out the new merch for Grey Zone Warfare that I've added to the page. I'll also probably be streaming as well, so if you check this out within the first couple of hours of the video, I'll probably be streaming Grey Zone Warfare 0.4 as well. As always, a big shout out to all my patrons, and as usual, have fun in your raids.